Welcome to the Put On Waivers Media Group, home of the Put On Raiders podcast and the Student Body Right podcast. This is your place for the best breakdowns and the best insight for those who fight on and bleed silver and black. Now, here are your hosts, Dwayne Douglas and Ryan Holmes.
And welcome everybody to another glorious episode of the Put On Raiders podcast. I'm your host, Dwayne Douglas, along with Ryan Holmes, and we are podcasting from Pacific Ocean, Southern California. My car broke down and it sounds like it's making all kind of noises. So I don't know what's going on, but I'm just always gonna be the glasses half full guy as far as that goes. You know, every time you go there, it's like $500 or more. Like you never go there to get your car fixed, Ryan, and it's like, oh, that's $100. That's always something really crazy.
No, the labor is always through the roof too. It's like it's a $79 part with the invoice. It's $7,000. Like what?
Yeah, what happened?
What are you charging me by the hour?
Don't tell me what the part costs, because then please, whatever. And now it's all computerized, so they don't want anybody touching it now. So you can't even do it yourself. Please rate, review, and subscribe on iTunes, and then also let's subscribe and subscribe more to this channel. We talked about a lot of the teams in the AFC West, talked about the Raiders after the draft and free agent and the big part of free agency, talked about the Chargers and the Chiefs. Now we're going to hit the Broncos now, and I think the thing about the Broncos that is really interesting is they have a quarterback that you and I definitely respect. Like we like Russell Wilson. We respect Russell Wilson. But I think the thing that I kind of take a little bit umbrage with is that like people are making it like they're such a ready-made team. Like, I mean, yes, they're going to be improved. I mean, they're going to win more games than I think they're going to win more games than they did last year, because they had Drew Lock at quarterback and Teddy Bridgewater. But are the Broncos as ready-made as everybody makes it seem to be? Because they make it seem like he's just walking into a situation where, it's just boom, and it's just like, 13-5.
This is definitely not the Buccaneers when Tom Brady walked in. This is definitely not the Rams when Matthew Stafford walked in. This team is young. There's not a lot of established veterans on this team. Looking at their offseason, I was surprised at how little they actually did other than Russell Wilson compared to what other teams in the AFC West, for instance, did, or across the landscape of the AFC in general. Mm-hmm. I respect Russell Wilson. This isn't Russell Wilson from 5 or 6 years ago. This isn't prime Russell Wilson that's there now that they got. He was okay last year in Seattle, not great. He had plenty of weapons on the outside there. He holds onto the ball a long time against probably one of the worst offensive lines in the AFC with the Broncos. So he's going to have to rely on that running game there, which he didn't want to do in Seattle. Let's face it, like he did not want to turn around and hand the ball off. And he's got to get on the same page with a bunch of young receivers. And I'm not so sure that I still believe in this Broncos defense. I don't think it's going to play up to the level it did last year. Now that Vic Fangio's gone, you have a new system coming in. And I'm not sure I trust the coordinators or the head coach here. First-time head coach Nathaniel Hackett. He's never really called the plays for Aaron Rodgers. He did, I believe, in Jacksonville for a little bit. But this isn't a guy that's been like a hot commodity guy that's been calling plays 5, 6, 7 years, leading teams to top 5 scoring offices. So there's a lot of question marks in Denver.
Yeah, and I think that the two guys who they let go in the trade, I think would be, two guys they're going to really miss. I think Shelby Harris and Noah Fant's like kind of on his way to being a pretty good tight end in this league, remembered for being a good tight end. And then I think Shelby Harris is a guy who Shelby Harris can play. Like, so he's a big part of that offense. So, it's gonna be very difficult for them. I mean, defensively, I'm still waiting to walk into a Twitter Spaces when they talk positive about the Broncos, and when I ask who the defensive coordinator is, nobody can say his name, or they just say the guy from the Rams. So that's not really a ringing endorsement. So I'm looking at it from my sense. I think Courtland Sutton is a solid player. He can play. I think Tim Patrick might actually be one of his best targets in his offense, the way seeing Russell Wilson play over the years. I think the one thing that really bothers me about the whole thing in Seattle is this idea that Tyler Lockett and Metcalf were like some scrubs. Like Metcalf has what 30 touchdowns in 3 years. Like he's a touchdown. He's been the touchdown machine. Lockett out of Kansas State used to be a returner, turned himself into one of the best receivers in football. I think it was averaging like almost 14, 16 yards per yards a catch last year. Like he has some serious weapons there. And he's also a guy when you watch him on film, and you mentioned holding the ball. He is a guy who at times now he can make some terrific, great plays with his legs and everything like that, but he does bypass maybe a tight end who's open or a play in the flat where nothing's there to hold the ball to get a play down the field, which can get him in trouble. And when you look at the pass rushers in the AFC West, that can be an issue for the Broncos going forward.
Yeah, clearly holding the ball is going to be an issue with the guys coming off the edge from the Raiders, the Raiders, the Chargers. Then you look over at the Chiefs. Mm-hmm. It's to me, it's the holding the ball, but it's killing drives when he does that because he's taking sacks he doesn't need to take and putting you in second and third and long. He's not the escape artist he used to be. He's not looking to run when he gets outside the pocket. He wants to throw the ball down, which is a nice evolution from him. But he's not Lamar Jackson. This guy's not going to break out 20, 30, 40-yard runs. So you almost have to do the plaster coverage and cover those guys and then make him throw it in the flat and then rally and tackle. But when I look around this offense, I don't like this offensive line. I didn't like it last year, and I don't see an upgrade anywhere. There wasn't an upgrade in the top 3 rounds of the draft. They didn't sign a guy in free agency that I think answers some questions. They have a huge hole at right tackle. I'm still not a giant Garrett Bowles guy at left tackle. I don't love any of the interior 3 guys. And they're going to have to run the football, like I said, to set up play action for him to take some of these deep shots. He can't take 7-step drops in the AFC West over and over again and think that that's going to work.
Did he go ahead. Sorry.
I was going to say the problem is if he doesn't want to face too high, they're going to have to run the ball and bring a safety in the box. And you know what Russell Wilson doesn't want to do? Turn around and hand the ball off. This is kind of an interesting fit for me. I don't think this is going to play out quite how Broncos fans want it to.
Yeah, and I'm thinking, did he just go to an orange and blue version of the Seahawks? Like, did he? I mean, is that what he did in this situation? Because I don't know. I mean, I think there's a lot of first time stuff going on here. I think Dwayne Stukes might be the most tenured coordinator on the staff. I just like I'm not saying that they are Billy Turner at right tackle. You mentioned that. I mean, that's just not going to be. I mean, can I put Max Crosby over there right now? Can I put Chandler Jones over there right now against him? So, it's going to be a tough situation. I think that first game of the year is going to say a lot because that first game of the year, you get Seattle in Seattle, they want the drama of Russell returning, but I mean, Seattle should win 4 or 5 games this year. That's it.
If you lose the Drew Lock opening week, you got more problems than we're going to talk about on this podcast.
that's what I'm people are like a couple of folks who like my people, my betting family. I don't bet very often, but they're my friends who bet a lot. He's like, dude, something tells me about something about that first game of the year that they're not going to win a lot of games, but that's a game that they could actually win. We'll see. I mean, I'm definitely rooting for it. We'll see what happens there. But people are talking about Randy Gregory, like he's a guy who's going to be, doing a whole bunch of things. I mean, they don't even have a guy on this. I mean, what's the most sacks Bradley Chubb ever got in a season?
He's over double digits. I believe he got 10 or 11.
10, 11? Yeah. Okay.
Randy Gregory's one slip up away from getting a year suspension, if not longer. He's had several run-ins with the law, several drug tests while he was with the Cowboys. Hopefully there's an out clause in this contract if something happens. I hope for Randy Gregory's sake nothing happens and he plays 5 years there and gets his money. Mm-hmm. But that's not someone you want to put all your eggs in that basket with based on just his past. And then other than Gregory and Wilson, when I look at the free agent signings, I mean, they brought back Kareem Jackson and Melvin Gordon. They had those guys last year. The only other name that moved the needle at all was Kayvon Williams in the slot.
Yeah.
And then their second round pick was a linebacker out of Oklahoma and a tight end out of UCLA in the third round. So I don't see difference makers added. This is all in on Russell Wilson. It's up to him to close the gap on all the other teams in the AFC West. I just don't see the offensive line And I don't believe in the linebacking core on this roster. I think that there are some holes on this defense you can exploit. Shelby Harris is a bigger piece, I think, than people are letting believe that's left. And can Bradley Chubb stay healthy? He's been hurt a couple of times now in his career. So there's a lot of questions on this roster.
Yeah, I mean, that's true. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I've been thinking the same thing the whole time, and like you said, I mean, you got to think about it too. Like with the Walmart folks buying this team now, if you're Russell, isn't Russell kind of saying, "Hey, where's my extension?" Like, you know what I mean? Like I mean, they didn't trade him for a 1-year deal. This isn't like Baker Mayfield on a prove it deal. They got him to make sure, hey, let's see what's going on with, you know, what's going on with that money. Like I mean, he could talk like a senator all he wants. And I was like, don't forget that he wants to get extension. And then part of the reason why Seattle let him go was because they didn't want to extend him. Like, I mean, they didn't want to pay him that big contract that was going to be coming up. So, I mean, you never know with teams. You never know with the Broncos. You never know what's going to happen in the National Football League on a day in, day out basis, a week to week basis. But I don't know. I think like 8 and 9 is like a realistic goal, and maybe in the following season, if everything starts to click, you know, then I think they can, you know, make some hay that way. But I'm not loving this. I'm not loving this mix right here. That's just me. And maybe they'll come and light up the scoreboard, but I'm not sure.
Yeah, I'm thinking more 7 and 10. You know, thinking about it, I don't think they're better on paper than any of the other 3 teams in the AFC West. And you start looking at the schedule. There are some winnable games early, but again, when you flip over to the NFC opponents, I don't think they're better than the Rams. I don't think they're better than the Cardinals. I think they're better than possibly the 49ers if Lance just, you know, does what he's supposed to do and doesn't just turn into a turnover machine. So there's not going to be a lot of wins on the back half of that schedule. But it should play out pretty nicely early for them to get on a little bit of run. But I think they're going to hit a roadblock middle of the season.
Yeah, that's gonna be interesting there. And for Averio, who is the defensive coordinator, we don't know about a lot of the pieces. And then you say to yourself, "Oh, I'm playing Justin Herbert. I'm playing Derek Carr. I'm playing, you know, Patrick Mahomes." I mean, that's really going to be a really tough situation for him to kind of deal with as a first year guy without having like the stars on defense. Like, I love this. Everybody loves Justin Simmons. I mean, the free safety. But I mean, who are the stars on this defense? Bradley Chubb had a breakout first year, but after that, the most he's had was 7 sacks, and you know he had 1 year where he was hurt, so I'm not gonna kill him for that year.
Surtain.
But Surtain is a good player as well too, so we'll see. But I mean, if the quarterback has time, it's going to neutralize Surtain. It's going to neutralize some of these defensive backs, because you're not going to be able to do what you need to do against these teams. Ronald Darby's on the squad too as well, so so we'll see what happens with the Broncos as far as that goes. I think Russell makes them better. I think the team will be better because Russell's on the team. But I do think, you know, we'll see what happens as we get closer to the season. But I think 8 wins is probably more realistic as far as that goes. We'll continue going around the NFL real quick. As far as everything's going on. Ronnie Hudson. What's up with Ronnie Hudson now? He's with the Cardinals right now, and we know that trade happened last year. Andre James is the center for the Raiders, was center last year. Looks like he'll be the center this year. We'll see what Parham comes in and does there. But what is the deal with that? It seems like it's just a weird. It seems like I thought he would be all good because they gave him big money as soon as he got there.
Yeah, I saw a report yesterday or today that he was basically skipping OTAs, the mandatory portion. So. Clearly something's going on that Hudson doesn't agree with. And, you know, looking at the contract situation, when the Raiders traded him to Arizona, they gave him a 3-year, $30 million extension with $16 million guaranteed. So he's coming out to about $10 million a year. He still has 2 years and $20 million left on that deal. There's 2 voidable years already tacked on to kind of spread out the cap hit so they could bring him over. But when you really look at it, he's the 7th highest paid center There's 4 or 5 guys making 12 million or more. I think there's a guy at 14. So maybe Rodney Hudson sitting back at this point and trying to get one more payday, get a little bit more money. But if I'm the Cardinals, I hold tight. You just signed a deal last year. We're giving you $20 million over the next 2 years. You're getting up there in age now. You kind of regressed a little bit last year. So we'll see where that goes. Maybe that played into a little bit of why the Raiders moved on him. Maybe he was asking them for a new contract as well, and they just didn't want to give it to him. We'll really never know why they moved him because they did it pretty quietly. But it is surprising after they gave him a 3-year deal last year that he's missing OTAs.
Yeah, that's kind of crazy. McLaurin, that deal just has to get done. I mean, I'm surprised it's not done already. It makes no sense for it not to be done. The guy is a really talented wide receiver. You have all this bad press that circles around the Washington Commanders, whether it's the head coach, not the head coach, but the defensive coordinator running his mouth, the owner running his mouth. I mean, it's crazy when you think about it. And then you think they could have had at least some bit of good news, something that showed everybody, hey, look at what, we signed one of our best players, and they're like kind of, pussyfooting around and not getting it done. It's kind of interesting that deal has not been done yet.
Yeah, we saw the wide receiver market explode this year. A bunch of guys got paid. Hunter Renfrow just got paid, and I kind of looked through, okay, what's the next wave of guys? So I went and, who's going to be up next year? Clearly, we know some of these names. McLaurin's one. That deal needs to get done. He's the best offensive player on that team. Give him $25 million a year over 4 or 5 years. Lock it up. Move on. And then you kind of look at some of the other names. Deebo Samuel clearly doesn't want to be there. He wants to get paid. I don't think the 49ers are willing to pay him what he wants. DK Metcalf needs to get paid next year. This is what happened when you don't take a receiver in the first round and you hit on him. You got to pay him after 3 years because their deals are going to expire after 4. You don't have that 5th year. And surprisingly, I think Deontay Johnson is on his way to a nice payday in Pittsburgh. We don't hear that name a lot. But with the year he had last year, I don't know if he can repeat that with Mitch Trubisky or Kenny Pickett, but he's in the neighborhood of $20 to $25 million too if he's able to go out and get 90 catches, 1,200 yards, and get 8 times in the end zone this year. So those are the 4 guys I think are coming up. I think if I had to rank the contracts as far as dollar value, I'd say McLaurin probably leads that group. Probably Metcalf or Samuel with those are 2 and 3, and then Johnson's probably 4th. But those guys are going to get paid, and I just have a hard time feeling at this point that it's going to come from the franchises they're with, or they would have already done it. There's no reason not to do it going into training camp this year because you have to pay these 4 guys.
Yeah, and somebody was talking about in the Twitter spaces about they had a full NFL one, and they're talking about Metcalf and why would he want to they should just trade him. I'm like, what? I mean, if they play this correctly, they can end up with a big time prospect at quarterback next year. I mean, if they're a really bad team, this is the year to be bad for a quarterback. Like, what I'm saying? Next year coming up will not be the year where, one quarterback will go in the first round. You could probably have 3 going in the first round next year. So you want to be in that top 3. I know they're not going to, obviously, Pete Carroll is going to try to win, especially that first game of the year. But, once it starts to go sideways there, whether it's Carroll or another head coach, why would you not want to have a big time quarterback or a big time prospect as a quarterback? Work with DK Metcalf, pay DK Metcalf. You don't got to pay that quarterback for years to come anyway, so you take it from there. Obviously, their instinct.
My question would be,
go ahead.
I would look at it from the other aspect. If I was one of these 4 guys, who are the quarterbacks throwing the ball to these 4 guys? Do you want to hitch your wagon for the next 4, 5, 6 years to Trey Lance? Do you want to
Geno Smith,
Drew Lock, Geno Smith, Kenny Pickett, Mitch Trubisky, Carson Wentz? Like, none of these guys are in a situation where they have an established quarterback. Now, if you're these teams and you're in the market to where you possibly could land, a top 5 pick, and you're at the trading deadline, I would move one of these guys to try to get another first-round pick or a high enough pick to give me the ability to get into the top 2 or 3. Because right now the top 2 guys are clearly going to be Bryce Young and CJ Stroud. Those are the 2 quarterbacks for next year. If I'm one of these wide receivers, I'm not sure I want to sign a deal right now unless it's at the top of the market. I'm not taking a below market deal to catch passes from those quarterbacks.
Yeah, interesting. I mean, I get the point. I get the point. I just kind of, I mean, I'm just thinking for them, like if you, I don't know. I mean, like it's going to be, the 12s are going to turn to 11 and a halves if you do that deal. So I mean, so if you do a deal for Metcalf, and then if you pay trade Metcalf, you got to trade Lockett because Lockett's not going to want to be there either. So I mean, you're rolling out there with nobodies. But I can see when the deadline comes back. I think the deadline should just be moved back a little bit more anyway, in my mind. But if the deadline comes and they're not playing, and they're not, and they have like one win, and then they're just they're 1-6, 1-7, whatever, and then at that point, then people are gonna be screaming to get out of there, and that could definitely happen out there in Seattle. I remember when the Dolphins traded Mika Fitzpatrick to the Steelers, and I was like, what was the compensation for that? Wasn't it like only like a third round pick?
They gave him a one.
They gave him one
No,
for that.
they were.
Okay.
They were
Was
like
one-
1 or 2
one?
and 7 or 8. They were off to a bad start, and they
Yeah.
traded a first round pick when they were supposed to end up with like a top 5 or 6 pick, and then they went on a run, and I think they actually made the playoffs.
Yeah.
But yeah, when they made that trade, they got criticized heavily. I was one of them. My buddy was a Steelers fan. I'm like, what are you doing? You're trading a first round, a top 5 pick for a safety, and clearly, it turns out that was the right move by the Steelers.
Who was the pick that the Dolphins ended up picking from that trade? I wonder who they picked from that trade. I gotta remember. I gotta look that one up.
We gotta look it back. That was probably
I gotta look that one up.
2 or 3 years ago.
But he's a good. I mean, but he's a good player. They gave him a nice deal. As far as that goes, I like that. I always like the player. So it's kind of like I felt like if you have young talent, he's only 25 years old, so he's
I think it was Austin Jackson. Because I think they went on a run, and the pick fell down to 18 or something. At the time, they were one of the worst teams in the league.
Yeah, that memory, boy, that memory is something else.
Yeah.
But he's. I mean, I'm not big on but the Steelers always seem to end up having, good safeties, good wide receivers. To me, it's interesting to me. Like, I don't see how Trubisky even starts. I mean, I feel like this is the perfect opportunity for Pickett to play. And I think they want Pickett to play. I think it's pretty clear they want Pickett to play. So we'll have to see what happens out there in Pittsburgh as far as that goes. Because they do have a lot of weapons out there too as well. If you don't bring in a young quarterback, Baker Mayfield, I'm hearing this like stuff from the Panthers. It sounds like his agent talk. The Panthers are urgently trying to trade for him. Again he has 18 million, right? So like, you gotta
almost 19, yeah. 18.8.
8.8. So I mean, like, you gotta, what do you do in that situation? Like, what I mean? Like, I mean, is my question to you is Baker Mayfield a improvement over Sam Darnold? Would you make if you're running that team and that who's the former Giant coach is the offensive coordinator now? No, just not
Garrett.
Jason Garrett.
No, Ben McAdoo.
Ben McAdoo, yeah, man, slick back hair, McAdoo. He's the guy who is calling the plays now. Would you make that deal? Do you think Baker Mayfield is an improvement over Sam Darnold?
In a vacuum, yes, Baker Mayfield's a better quarterback than Sam Darnold. But looking at it, I'm not paying $18.8 million on a 1-year deal for Baker Mayfield. If I'm the Panthers, I want the Browns to pick up at least 10 to 12 million of this. If I get him for 1 year and it's going to cost me the equivalent of a solid backup, $5-6 million a year, and I'm only going to give up like a 6th or 7th. I'll put some conditions on it. If he plays well, if we win X number of games, if he throws for X number of yards, maybe it turns into a 3rd or a 4th. I'm not giving up anything near a 1st or 2nd round pick for 1 year Baker Mayfield. So yeah, if I'm the Panthers, I hold all the cards. Like, I just say, hey, you're going to pay 12 of the 18 million, and I'm going to give you a 6th and if we hit all these performance team related goals, you might get a 3rd or a 4th. But I don't think it's smart for the Panthers to go in and pick up most of this contract. They don't need to. The Browns are going to have to release him at some point.
Yes.
He won't go to training camp with Cleveland.
Yeah.
So they have no power, no negotiating power here. So if they could get anything for him and get out of some of that money, because they release him, they still have to pay the $18.8 million unless there's offset language in the contract that I don't know of.
Yeah.
They're on the hook for that money one way or another.
Yeah, that's crazy.
Can you imagine you go into training camp and you have the Deshaun Watson circus on this side, and then you got Baker Mayfield at camp, and everyone's asking questions about him. You can't have both of those things going on during training camp.
No. And my favorite NFL reporter is Tom Pelissero, who is probably the best Raiders beat reporter out there, because he breaks all the Raiders stuff. So he talked about, I think I'm starting to believe that Watson might play this year and play early, because he when he was talking about, because like, if you're an NFL Network reporter, aren't your sources the NFL? Like, in essence, like, that's your sources, right? So he made it seem like, oh, this is a unique situation, and he even brought up the fact that he didn't think it was like Trevor Bauer's situation. So, like, so he said a lot of things to that effect, and I just kind of feel like they're just gonna play this out and they're gonna let the guy play. As weird as it sounds, but I kind of think they're gonna let him play. Maybe some bombshells happen, and then, like, I mean, I don't know how many, I'm not sure how many more bombshells you need for it to happen, but I mean, maybe, because I think one of the things that people don't talk about is the fact that Robert Kraft got in a situation like this. Like, I'm not sure, I mean, not to an extent, but like, nobody ever talks about that part of it, and I think that they don't want to open up that can of worms. So maybe that's it. I have no idea, but and to me, it sounds like he's gonna play at least. I mean, start the season. I mean, I gotta see. Because I would think the exemplist was coming, but I don't know. I'm not sure if it's coming or not.
And kind of what I was hearing is there's supposed to be an announcement, right around 4th of July, where the NFL might try to bury this around the holiday weekend.
Okay. They would do that.
If they don't say anything by the middle of July, you can't just randomly make a decision once training camp starts. Like, they've had plenty of time. But if you're the NFL too, we've had 2 new complaints in the last couple of months. Like, you don't want to act too quickly here and suspend him and say, okay, it's 6 games, and then he serves that, and the next thing you know, it's 35, not 24. So the NFL's kind of in a tough spot. They need to do something, though. We're going into year 2 here. They need to make a decision and live with it. And to me, I think that he should be suspended. I don't know. I'm not going to say how many games or whatever, but I don't think he should be taking snaps week 1 for the Cleveland Browns with everything that's going on.
No, it's going to be tough. And then they have the whole implications that the Texans knew, and they were accommodating it too as well. So that's kind of crazy.
They were giving out non-disclosure agreements. The organization, that's crazy.
That is crazy. And it sounds like, and like, I remember the first time this dropped, a guy said to me, I bet you the Texans knew, and because he wanted to get traded, they let this go. And I was like, really? You think the Texans would do it? I was like, again, if the Texans are guilty of that, and the NFL team will do anything to win. They'll do anything to win if that's the case, as far as that goes. Did you see PFF's top 10 coaches?
I glanced at it today. I tried to follow the formula they used. It made no sense. Just about the analytic nonsense.
It was nonsense. It was nonsense. Any kind of anything you can do to make Cliff Kingsbury the 4th best coach in football is going to be whatever formula that is. You can throw that formula out. I'm not sure. I have no idea what they're doing. I think they have a phrase for it. It's called doing the most. Like, they're doing the most right now just to make. I mean, we got people to read it, and I think that's what they were trying to do, because it doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, they said it was based on some algorithm they put together based on what someone would do with average talent, and then based on
contracts,
the number of points given up and dollars values spent to positions. Like the borderline was 348 points either scored or allowed. That determined what average was. And I looked at the list, and once I got to like number 4, like I said, I was like, Kingsbury, nope. Pete Carroll at 5, nope. Reich 9, nope. And then Mike McCarthy at 10. I almost threw my computer out the window. But then I was like, all right, what's the next one? 11, Sean McVay. Sean McVay is a better coach than all those guys. Yeah. Mike Tomlin, 13. Mike Tomlin's a better coach than others. And I would even take Sean McDermott at 16 and put him in the top 7 or 8 somewhere.
Yeah, so that's crazy.
So
it's crazy.
And we crazy just talk. Yeah. Analytics is crazy.
It's crazy. Let me give you a couple of coaches. I don't think they're in the Hall of Fame. That's one thing. If you think they're Hall of Famers, is George Seifert a Hall of Fame coach?
No, I don't think he did it long enough.
Okay. What about is is Shanahan's not in there, is he?
I would lean no. I don't think he's in yet. Will he get
Mm,
in? I think at some point he will. I know Raider fans don't like to hear that, but
yeah,
what he did, the longevity he did it, he
yeah.
won 2 Super Bowls. Um, he had a great run with Denver. I think eventually, if he's not in now, then he will get it.
Marty Schottenheimer?
I'm going to say no. He never won anything of
Yeah.
any, in the postseason. So I think that will
Yeah.
keep him out.
Yeah, because he won a lot. He won a lot of damn games though. He did hit, but yes, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, totally makes sense. Hit to the Raiders now. Some of these questions here. Obviously there was a tone to kind of an angry tone to Jonathan Abrams' press conference. And James from the 413 wants to know, what do you see his role being on this football team?
Yeah, that's a tough one. His role at this point is they're going to try to use him as a starting safety and see if he can play some of these too high coverages and if he can disguise and if he can help out in the slot and kind of what he can do. And based on Paul Gunther's scheme, which I don't know if we really learned anything from that,
No,
I'm not sure he can do that.
yeah,
So we'll see. They're going to give him every chance to be that starter. We'll see if he can play well enough to hold on to that role throughout the course of the season, or at some point when they go to their dime packages and bring 3 safeties in, does he be the guy that drops down into the box and then they play another guy high with Merrick?
mhm.
I think it restricts you with him on the field with Merrick in 2 safety sets because you want to use Merrick, his versatility. You want him to drop in, you want him to blitz, you want him to play man at the slot. You want to be able to just kind of change your coverages and disguise a lot of stuff.
To
You
mix
can't
and
do that with
match,
Abram on the
to
field.
mix and match
Yeah.
both safeties, right? You can't do that when Abrams on the field. So that's what the
No, and
ideal situation. Yeah. Go ahead.
if I'm an offensive coordinator and you come out and you're going to be in some sort of cover one where that safety's playing man on the slot, I'm going to motion to the passing strength and take the receiver and motion him to the other side and make those safeties switch responsibilities. And now I've got Abram matched up with whoever I want.
Yeah.
So the Raiders have to get really creative with how to hide him because the smart teams, Andy Reid would have a field day.
Yeah.
If he can fit, if they're going to go too high or they're going to play these kind of coverages with Abram up there or in man coverage. So I don't know. Like he's a tough one. Is he going to be a dime linebacker where you can bring him on the blitz? Because one of his best strengths is pass rush, and believe it or not, even though he doesn't have any sack, I don't think he has a sack in his NFL career. But
No, he doesn't.
he's shown the ability to get into the backfield and create havoc. I just don't know in this type of defense if this kind of player has a spot.
Yeah. That's interesting. I was trying to watch the Giants, and I'm just trying to see if there was something comparable to him, and it's just difficult to see. Difficult. I mean, he's a good. I mean, good tackler stuff like that, but I don't know. Brandon wants to know too, and then Brandon has a good question for me. Is that for us, whatever, about Devontae Adams and like how when he's with if he was with the Packers, would anybody be bringing up the fact that he's 30 years old? Absolutely, and I'd say absolutely not. This is purely because he switches teams and with the Raiders, and even watching him last year against Jalen Ramsey, watching him last year against the Niners, and watching against all these teams. I mean, he's really doing. I mean, he's doing it against top corners. They do a good job of moving him around, putting him in the slot. I think Josh McDaniels is probably in the lab as we speak, just kind of getting creative ways to get him the football. I still think he has a lot left in the tank. I think he is ecstatic about playing with his team, playing with Derek and playing with the Raiders. I don't think age is if the car to Adams is not successful, I don't think it's going to be because he's 30 years old.
No, if he signs that extension with Green Bay, no one says a word about it. I think what I'd like to see McDaniels do is figure out a way if they're going to play a lot of 2 wide receiver personnel and not get into a lot of 11. If they're going to do a lot of 21 or 22, I want to see Waller and Adams kind of on the same side.
Yeah.
Dictate the coverage that way. And then on the backside, you can leave Renfro one-on-one where they can't double him.
Mm-hmm.
You can't do that a lot because you don't want that extra defender lurking where both Waller and Adams are, but maybe work one of those guys across the field. But there's a lot of different ways where now all the coverage, wherever Adams goes, the coverage has to go that way. You can't leave him one-on-one.
You can't.
So now it's what do you do with the other chess pieces? And, McDaniels is one of the best at using those guys and getting them open. So it's going to be exciting to see. to turn on the film and watch that and not just watch, guys run vertical clear out routes all the time, like we did the last 4 years.
You don't like watching
No
those?
offensive coordinator.
You don't like watching
No, I
those?
don't. But
Cardio.
we'll see.
My
We'll see what
favorite.
happens.
My favorite line from Ryan. Everybody was getting nice cardio out there. Brian Edwards, everybody getting cardio.
It sounds like Mac Hollins has got a role here. It sounds like he's going to be the guy that's going to get the main snaps.
Over Demarcus, whatever his name, Robinson.
That's kind of what Vic Kafer was reporting at the end of minicamp. There is a role in this offense for Mac Hollins, and I think the size is going to help in the red zone.
Yes,
he can get vertical. He's a bigger guy, big catch radius. He's not going to be running the short, shifty, intermediate routes. Like, he's not a true burner, but he's not slow. Like, he can run. He can build up speed. So
I bet
just
you
a guy that can get vertical and pull some coverage if need be.
I bet you in the running game too, he's a good blocker. I can just with guys who play special teams like that, I can definitely see that in him. I gotta look those things up. And I like how much watching the Patriots on with Mac Jones and watching the Patriots with just over the years, like they do a good job of that fringe, that pre red zone area. They get to like the 40 to 30 yard line and they kind of attack the end zone from there. With the three weapons the Raiders have, and then you could sneak. I mean, there's going to be like a plays there where somebody like Mac Collins who just blocks is going to be able to come down, act like he's going to block, and then go vertical and make some plays in that in that offense. With the Raiders trying to with the writing on the wall for Josh Jacobs, do you feel like they should just trade him? And I was like, I mean, no. I mean, I wouldn't trade him. I wouldn't trade him this year. I mean, let me see what those rookies. I don't want to play those rookies running backs until I have to. So if the depth chart got that bad where they had to play, then they have to play. I think that 28. I mean, let Jacobs Jacobs has every incentive to have a huge season. So let him have it because you know what I mean. So that's why. What do you think?
This team's built to win this year. They have a 3-year window. Josh Jacobs is the best running back in that room.
Yes.
Now, is he going to be the bell cow that's going to get you 1,500 yards and 15 touchdowns on your fantasy team? I would not bet on that, no. But he's the best guy in that room, so I don't know why you'd move on from him. What are you going to get from him on the trade market? A 5th-round pick at this point? No one's giving you, a 2nd or 3rd-round pick for him. And then I saw one comment online where someone's like, keep him, let him sign in the offseason, you'll get a 3rd year on comp pick. Well, comp picks are based on the value of the contract the player signs. No one's giving a running back on the open market a contract that's going to get you a 3rd round comp pick back. So you're probably looking at maybe a 4th or 5th round, depending on the amount of money he gets if he has a good season. So to me, none of that is worth moving on from him at this point. Let him play. If he has a great season, great. If he struggles early on, if the injuries come, you have depth. Yes. There's no need to move on from him unless he just says, look, I'm not showing up. I don't want to play, which I don't think. I'm not getting those vibes from him.
He's not doing that. He ain't doing that.
He's going to be on this team, and we know what a motivated Josh Jacobs can do. Yeah. We know how physical he is as a runner. We know what a good blocker he is. We know he can catch the football. And I'm excited this year to see one thing. The Raiders execute a screen pass because I haven't seen that since the days of Harvey Williams. So we'll see what happens, or maybe Napoleon Kaufman. Like, it's been a minute since the Raiders could throw a screen.
I was just going to say Napoleon Kaufman. Yeah, Napoleon Kaufman was my guy, man. God bless Napoleon. God bless Napoleon Kaufman. And when Jamie wants to know when the deal for Waller, when do you see that getting done, or do you see it getting done? I think that here's what I think. I think one thing is for sure, people for some reason hate clutch sports. So I think everybody has these articles already written about clutch sports not getting it done, and they're waiting to just press send if this deal doesn't get done. I feel like, if the whole thing with Derek said, Derek and Devontae said, hey, let's make sure we have money for everybody else. Seems like it should be money for everybody else. I want the band to be together. I want to have like a little bit of a triplet situation there with those receivers. I like Waller a lot. I think Waller in this offense with those two weapons, it's just going to be a difficult situation. And this team, this coordinator knows how to get, the sideline coordinator, the head coach knows how to get the tight ends involved and get tight ends involved heavily. So, and he's may not have the power of Gronk, but the speed that the Waller has is just ridiculous. I mean, put him against a safety or a linebacker. I would just say not because of the story of Darren Waller, but just the player Darren Waller. I would like to see the deal get done.
I think the Renfro deal leads me to believe this is going to get done sooner rather than later. When you look at the 2-year deal on the Renfro extension, kind of surprised me. I was fully expecting a 4 or 5 year deal extension, keep him around as long as possible. But clearly, if you look at the Carr deal now, the Renfro deal, they're looking at maybe a 3 or 4 year window here. He's got 2 years left on the deal he has now. So, would it surprise me if it's a 2-year extension for Darren Waller and then give him $30 million? Give him $15 million a year, but don't give him a huge bonus. Tie it to a roster bonus maybe 2 years from now, to where the cap hits kind of spread out a little bit, where you don't have to give out the big cash outlay now. So I think he's got 2 years, 14 million left on the deal. So I could see a 2-year, $30 million extension. Now you're looking at 4 years, 44. Doesn't sound huge, but it gives him 30 million in new money if you guarantee a lot of that. So I could see them doing a short-term deal and trying to keep him in the fold here for another 4 years, because he's 29 or 30. He's not a 25-year-old player.
Yeah, he's a little bit older. So. But I would say this. Hold on. Go ahead. Keep going.
I would say a 2-year extension for Waller is probably something that they can get done pretty quickly, and they could probably do it in the next month leading into training camp. The question is, does Darren Waller want that, or is he looking for a big payday, the 4-year extension, the 5-year extension, 65, 70 million with 30 to 40 million guaranteed? If he's looking for that, I don't think the Raiders move on that quickly. But if it's, hey, give me the 2-year, $30 million with 20 million guaranteed, let's tack that onto my existing deal. That gives me $20 million in my pocket now, and I'm here for 4 more years, and he wants to do that, then I think the Raiders do it. So I think the ball's in Darren Waller's court here.
Yeah, I want to see one thing here, because I know I had this conversation with somebody else before. I want to look at this thing real quick with Darren Waller and Hunter Renfro. So, okay, so all right. So he is he is 30. He's gonna be 30 years old, but I would say he's played basically 3 years in a lot of ways. Like, he's played the last 3 years, 16 games, and then 11 games in 2021. So I mean, the games played are not as much as a typical 29-year-old, because he didn't play very much with Baltimore, and only played 4 games. Only played 4 games with the Raiders in 2018. So we'll see what happens there. But yeah,
if you look at it that way, you have to look at the age is a big deal here, because he's coming into his age 30 season. Mm-hmm. How does he win? He's not an inline blocking tight end that can win with physicality. This is a guy that wins with athleticism, speed, burst. Is that going to carry into age 33, 34, 35? History says no, it's not. So he has like a probably 3 to 4 year window left where he's in his prime. Mm-hmm. You don't want to have to pay him $14-15 million a year once he gets past that and he gets into the 34, 35, 36 age, where he's losing those skills that are what sets him apart, makes him valuable now, because he's never going to be a great inline blocker.
No, okay, makes sense. The Gruden and Mayock do better than we think with all the players who are getting new contracts with the Raiders.
No. Because let me tell you this: they missed on how many first-round picks and how many second-round picks? Yes. Because you don't have to pay those guys. You can pay not that Crosby and Renfro aren't good, but like, if they would have hit on half of those first-round picks, you'd have way more depth on this roster. Yeah. Did they hit on a couple later round guys? They hit a home run with Max Crosby. They hit a home run with Hunter Renfro. But you can't blow all those draft picks that they did and say, hey, we got a guy in the 4th round, a guy in the 5th round.
It doesn't work that way.
We're good. That's not how it works.
That's how it works. Now you can't, I mean, you're going to miss on some picks, and you have, especially the first round, like, you have to be able to, I mean, come on. Abram would have gotten drafted in the National Football League, but not in the first round. Josh Jacobs, probably not in the first round. Cleveland Farrell, I don't think in the first round. So, I mean, that's the problem. I mean,
what about Arnett?
Arnett.
You didn't. And Ruggs was kind of, you can't really fault him for that one.
I think Ruggs would have got drafted in the first round, though. He's a first round. He's a first round talent. He would have got drafted in the first round.
You could argue they took the wrong receiver, but Ruggs was a first round talent.
First round talent. I mean, I still go back to the Gruden game where they played at Arizona against Josh Rosen, and
the field goal. You
cannot win that game. If there's a game that you have to lose, you have to get the first round pick, and that you have to get the first round pick. And then if you want to stay, you want to keep Carr, you field offers for Kyler Murray all day and all night, and you get more picks. They probably would have screwed. Or you take Bosa, who they probably want to take anyway. So I don't know.
I want a 30 for 30 on what would have happened if they got the number one pick and took Kyler Murray and traded Derek Carr, because that would be very fun to watch on Twitter.
That would have been happened. That's the worst. That's probably, of all the quarterbacks I could think of to work with John Gruden, I think that would have been probably the worst.
He'd be running around and Gruden be yelling at him.
Oh my God.
NFL films.
Jesus Lord. I can't even imagine. He already has the worst body language in NFL anyway. That dude. Yeah. So, it's crazy. Are you buying the Lester Cotton hype? No. Nobody.
I've watched film of Lester Cotton. I'm going to say no, I'm not.
No, he's a backup. Like he's a backup. He's a third string guard. Like he'll be on the team.
He's practice squad depth. He's a nice guy to have around, and if there's a lot of injuries. Well, to me, Lester Cotton, I would not even put him on the 53-man roster at this point.
No,
he's in there because of injury right now.
Yeah, no, I can't mess with Lester Cotton. Do the rosters in the AFC West is the last one from the internet. This is from Twitter, the DM. Are the rosters the AFC West has stars, but do you feel like these rosters are? Do you feel like these rosters lack depth? And I think everybody kind of lacks a little depth in some aspects. I mean, I think the Raiders probably have. The Raiders and Chiefs probably have the best linebacking cores. I could maybe say that. You know what I'm saying? Like in the division, but as far as the league goes, I wouldn't put them in a great class in that as far as that goes. I mean, what do you think about the lack of they got stars there, but these teams lack depth?
I think every team in the NFL somewhere across the roster is lacking depth. It's just too hard nowadays. You lose them too quickly. You miss on too many draft picks. Too many guys get hurt. I would say top to bottom, the AFC roster-wise is probably the best in the NFL if you're just looking at 1 through 53 and lining it up across the league. Just based on the star power and the number of Pro Bowlers and the All-Pros that are in that division, there's really not a bad roster. Even we made fun of the Broncos a little bit earlier in the show. They probably have a top 15, top 18 roster in the NFL. Mm-hmm. It's not a bottom half of the league roster by any means, but it's clearly the fourth best roster, in my opinion, in the AFC West.
And if they had an established coach who worked with Russell in the past or something like that, then I would feel a little bit more comfortable. Then Hackett is just bouncing around, smiling. Like I'm like, when the bullets are flying, like is he going to be ready to go? Is it as far as go time goes? And that offense that he likes to run, a lot of times it's getting the ball out on time, not necessarily getting the ball, not necessarily going down the field. And this is an opportunity. This is probably, if Judy doesn't come through this year, I'm not sure what year he's gonna what year he's never gonna come through. As far as that goes. But I do like Sutton, do like Patrick, but Judy would be the guy who takes him over the top offensively, as far as that goes. Any other things in Raider Nation, NFL? Want to head up?
No, I think we're kind of in the dead period now as we're in mid-June and we're heading in. We got about a month, 5-6 weeks maybe till training camp. The Raiders will be in that first preseason game. I think it's August 4th. We can tune in to watch them run out onto the field, and then no one's going to play. So you're going to see a lot of Chase Garbers.
Chase about to get burned, though.
There's going to be some Britton Brown in that game. Yes. Get to know the practice squad players by watching that game. I don't think we're going to see – I would be shocked if we saw Derek Carr or Devontae Adams play a single snap in any of the preseason games. I don't think they're going to risk either one of those guys.
I don't think I just think they're all in focused on this season, and there's no way. I think there's any way any of those guys play. I totally agree with you. I don't think I'd be flabbergasted if I saw. I might actually call you if I see him say, why is Derek taking the snap? What's going on? Why is Devontae lining up against some
joint practices have replaced exhibition games?
Yes. Are they going joint with the Patriots?
Yes.
Okay, but you're the Patriots. Okay, that makes sense. Cool. All right, Ryan. Hope you continue to get better. And Raider Nation, subscribe to the Put on Raiders podcast, to the Student Body Right USC podcast, and the Put on Waivers podcast, talking little San Francisco Giants as well too. So we have all that for you there, and hit us up on Twitter, Instagram, all that good stuff. See you next time. Peace.
Take care.
Yep.